Well, thanks everybody for watching. We have a really special person that we're going to be learning from today. This is Quentin, and he's our second awesome community member that is going to be sharing his family recipe with us today. Quentin, thanks so much for being here and for sharing those awesome photos and your recipe. Would you be willing to introduce yourself to those watching?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. So my name is Quentin Rizzardi. I'm a transplant. I've been at Champaign-Urbana for about 4 years now. I'm a French citizen, but I've been living there for a couple of years doing my PhD at the University of Illinois in material science.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how did you find the co-op?
I think it's through my wife originally because she learned of the farmers market that takes place right next to it, and going to the farmers market, we found a co-op, and that really ticked a lot of the boxes. We're looking for more sort of local organic products in general. Yeah,
Sweet.
really
And
happy
yeah,
with it.
yeah, and we'll have to have Juan do one of her recipes later this year. Um, and will you share a little bit about the recipe that you wrote and that you wanted to share with the community? And does it have any special significance to you?
Sure. Yeah. So the recipe I've provided is the choux à la crème recipe, which is the French term for what is called cream puffs usually in the US, or profiteroles. If you've heard the term, it's just profiterole is just a frozen version of it. And for me, I really like this recipe for two reasons. The first one is that it really is a celebratory sort of bake. These are pastries that you usually have for for weddings, for baptisms, for big parties in general, and they always feel a bit fancy. And in particular, my family, my grandma in particular, loved to bake, and she was an excellent baker. And she used to do these as well as beignets and similar treats around carnival time, so around sort of Mardi Gras, which is still it's not celebrated as much in France as it is now in New Orleans. We don't have the whole thing with the floats, but
Yeah.
we still use it as an excuse to have a lot of sweet treats.
That's amazing. I love that you learned this from your grandma.
Yeah,
Um,
the recipe has been a bit modified over the years, but
but
I'd call this
um,
from her.
you probably learned the technique, and maybe some things have adjusted. But
Hmm.
I think that's so valuable. Um,
Because a lot of my grandma's recipes you just need to add just enough, and I have no idea what just enough is because I'm not good enough for it.
yeah, you probably by watching she because baking is so tricky, but she kind of knew exactly how much.
Yeah, it's about if you're doing enough times, then you have a good idea of what the texture should really look and feel like. And these are there's no replacement for practice at this point.
Well, I can't wait to try it, and I'll definitely have to try it this next week. And so, yeah, like you mentioned your grandma, were there any other impactful people that you grew up with that taught you how to bake and cook?
I think so. My grandma was a big part of it because my sister and I, so my mother was working night shifts. So very often I actually stayed at my grandma's during the days because my mom had to rest.
Oh,
But yeah, but so my grandma, because basically, and I didn't appreciate that a lot when I was a kid, but essentially my grandpa was in charge of the garden and my grandma was in charge of the cooking and baking. And so a lot of the ingredients, even the eggs came from, they had a little chicken coop. Um,
wow.
yeah, so it was all fresh from the garden, and which is something I think I didn't appreciate much when I was a kid. So it's like, whatever. But now that when I eat, supermarket tomatoes, not the co-op ones, not the common ground ones, but like, the your basic Schnucks tomatoes, they don't hit the same. But anyway, yeah. So my grandma did a lot. My mom is also loved to cook, and my sister actually, my younger sister, when my grandparents were getting quite old, and we knew we were sort of preparing, she really took upon herself to keep the recipes, and
Oh,
she scanned or took pictures of the recipes she could find. So yeah, they're really the ones who sort of put me on that path. And then my wife is Chinese American, so she's told me a lot about non-Western cooking, because I only knew Western style of baking and cooking, but there's so many flavors and textures, obviously, that you get with like Chinese or Korean food or Thai food, and yeah, I'm really enjoying discovering that as well. Thanks to her.
oh, that's so great. Yeah, yeah. I bet it's so nice to learn those different cuisines from people who really know it. That seems perfect. Oh, great. Has there been anything that you have been particularly cooking during COVID?
Good question. I think we've been sort of like trying. I've made a lot of bread, like everyone. It's just
Same, same.
just making bread, especially for Christmas. I got a like a book of bread recipes. I already had my own, but now I have so many more. But yeah, I think for me, just doing a lot of bread, or like cinnamon buns or croissants, and a lot of like bakes that yeasty bakes and such. So
How
that's what
comforting.
yeah, that's what I've been mostly doing. It's not great for the stomach, but it's good for the soul.
Totally.
Mm.
Yeah, that's same with me. I've been doing a lot of different baking, or just trying different recipes I've never done before. And it's like, we need to make something, make home time a little bit more special, and
Yeah.
try things out. And that kind of helps us get through it.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yeah, yeah. My wife has done a lot. Like I said, she usually really knows her like Chinese cooking, but she's been doing more Thai cooking last month, for
ooh.
example. And just for like 2 weeks, that's pretty much all we ate. Which
Great.
the stomach needs a bit of an adjustment period. If you've been eating a lot of like carbs and like stuff that doesn't have a lot of spice, and you move to Thai,
Yeah.
that can be a lot. But yeah, just yesterday I actually made for the first time I actually made my own curry paste,
Ooh,
and
yes.
and like getting that galangal and all those really nice flavors that I'm, like I said, I'm discovering, and it's really fun to experiment like that and discover cultures that I didn't know much about through this way. Which is why I'm sad that Common Ground doesn't do the obviously for very good reason those
Yeah. Yeah.
those classes as much, because we were there for the classes. I don't remember the man's name
We
for
met actually at
the
Test Class
injera.
Ethiopia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for the
Ethiopian
injera.
injera class.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
because I
It's really
really like Ethiopian food, and fortunately you can't get it much in Urbana-Champaign. So that was yeah. So
I
yeah, this is
totally
how we've
agree.
been.
Yeah, it's actually I'm gonna be asking Test By to do a recipe soon. So I'll have to make sure that I send you those links. But yeah, we're just biding our time for bringing back cooking classes, but obviously no one's really in the mood to cook with
Oh no, for sure.
strangers.
No, absolutely not.
That was I really appreciate having had all of those cooking classes and cultural cuisine classes pre-COVID. So we have to find different ways to have people try these amazing recipes. Well, thank you, Quentin. Thank you so much for sharing this. I'm sure everyone watching is gonna absolutely love that family recipe of the show
Yeah, hopefully.
and
yeah, I would say, like, as the last thing, I've written it at some point in the recipe, but one really good aspect of the choux is that once you know how to do the batter, the dough for the choux, and once you know how to do the crème pâtissière, which is essentially a custard. It's a custard with some flour. That's all it is. But once you know how to do these two, that's like 50% of French baking there, because then it's just mix and match. It's like, oh, if you take this dough but you add a certain glazing, that gives you a particular cake. If you take this crème pâte but then you do some filo pastry type and you do layers, that's a millefeuille, which are all delicious in their own way. So that's really also why I wanted this recipe, so that people could get this. It's a really good step into French baking.
Yeah, you're so right. And
Mhm.
I'm so glad that you kind of showed pictures of the different steps because I feel
Yeah,
like that will be really nice. I know when I've made choux before, you kind of have to stir it in a way and heat it up
yeah,
in a way that to
yeah,
get the
yeah,
right texture.
yeah, yeah. There's a
So
you got
and
to
you can start from
control.
the
Yeah, and it
Mhm.
is. I've noted it down. It is a work. It is an arm workout. It really is. Like I am fairly young and good, relatively good health, and it's still like I could still feel my shoulder afterwards because you really have to beat it into submission, so to speak.
You're so right. Yeah. Well, we
Mhm.
all need a little bit more activity, so why not why not do the work and then have the treat later? No, that's amazing. Yeah, I
Mhm.
will we'll have to bring you back for more other special desserts
Yeah,
later
gladly,
on.
gladly. I
Yeah.
also have plenty of other recipes. I'm happy to share.
Cool. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait to make these, and I know everyone will be really excited to have a recipe to celebrate Mardi Gras. And cream puffs are, and Joe La Creme is always going to be something that
Yeah,
people are going to want to make.
Mardi Gras, as you probably know, means Fat Tuesday, right? And it's supposed to
Mhm.
be the one day before you go for Lent, which people don't really do anymore. They still do it in the UK, I've realized recently.
Yeah,
But like, it's meant to be Fat Tuesday. It's meant to be fat. Believe me, it fits the bill perfectly.
it does. I love that. Oh, well, you're the best. Thanks so much for
Thank you, Sarah.
sharing. Yeah, and yeah, we'll have to include you on more recipes down the line. But I really appreciate you taking this time to write the recipes out and share it with all of us.
Yeah, no
So
problem. Anytime.
yeah, yeah, thank you
Okay.
so much. Okay,
All
we'll
right.
see you soon.